Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Joe, was that Randy Newman? Yeah. Don't you love Randy Newman?
Love Randy.
Yes. Yeah. There was this boy who was going to go see his grandmother in New York City on at Christmas time. And he says, well, Grandma, I haven't been to your new apartment. How do I get there? And she said, well, when you get to the building, she said, take your elbow and press the button, and I'll beep you in. And then when you get to the elevator, use your elbow and hit number 14, and it'll bring you to the 14th floor, where you come out of the elevator, turn right, come to 1401, and use your elbow to hit the door, and I'll answer the door. And he says, well, Grandma, why do I need to use my elbow for all of those buttons? She says, you're not planning to come empty-handed, are you? Wise Grandma. A few weeks ago, I talked about how to achieve oneness with Spirit, and I said, how was the answer? Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With lots of trust and even more release and surrender. But how do we get the wisdom in order to know what we need to release so that we can begin to truly celebrate and honor who we are? First of all, I believe that wisdom is inbred in us. It's a natural phenomena. I mean, hey, God knows everything, right? But that it is always available for help. I was just sitting here and I said, angelic forces, if you'll be with me to help me offer this talk this morning. And they're like, we're lined up out over into China somewhere. And they're like, I said, don't make me cry. I know you guys have got my back. So, but let me stick to the script. Sorry, it's just easier for me. I found a quote in my old Al-Anon book I wanted to read here. It says, all of us tend to rebel against the unhappiness in our lives. We try to understand. Rebelliousness will only heap one frustration on another until we learn to get out from under, let go, let God, and let God have a hand in our affairs. There's a question that what is an absolute is that things are going to change and we're going to collect experience, which means wisdom will eventually come. Our beloved God will see to it that we are directed to clearing the dark spots that stand in the way of our own evolution. It reminded me of a football game. When a quarterback if the quarterback does not throw the ball in a game, it's not going to be a very interesting game, is it? In fact, a friend of mine who's married to a scientist, so you got to figure he's an egghead already. I asked her one time, I said, is your husband at home watching the game? And she says, Jenny, he doesn't watch games. She said he doesn't understand what is the fascination with adult men watching other adult men chase balls. And I was floored by that. I thought, wow, that is heavy. But I thought, perhaps ball games are God's way of teaching a living parable. That I got to thinking that there's a powerful metaphor here. Don't we love stories about heroes that in order to win they've got to achieve insurmountable odds, But a quarterback must throw the ball if he's going to win the game. If he hangs on to the ball, he's going to get clobbered, make very little movement forward, or it may even be pushed back a few inches or yards or whatever it takes. So in our life, in our spiritual evolution, we have to risk release what doesn't work on a moment-to-moment basis. A blanket surrender isn't going to work. Our dark side, our anger, our resentment, and stuff like that is actually a lotus flower. It's one petal at a time. It's one little tiny surrender release at a time. Everything that shuts down our heart and keeping our hearts and our minds open needs releasing. What could shut down our open heart? Our dark stuff. Even if we have anger and resentment for something that happened, say for example if John had blamed God for flipping that boat over. That would have shut him down. No matter how right and justified we are, we need to let go. We need to totally letting go allows our heart and mind to stay open. An awareness came to me while I was thinking about this, that since we're in the middle of the holiday season, we are celebrating the birth of the Christ consciousness in a form of an infant called Jesus, or Yeshua for his more Hebrew name. But what was so important about that was that humanity had evolved to the point at that time where they were ready to allow the news that God was love. The thing is, it's taken us approximately 2,000 years for us to get to the point where we're beginning to live it. Prior to that, in the old Hebrew text in the Old Testament, Jehovah was a condemning, ruthless, abusive tyrant. No pun intended, but it was God's way or the highway. And if you didn't obey by slaughtering your first child who you've been waiting on 80 years to conceive, or to conceive your best ram, which was tithing taking to an extreme, wouldn't you agree? That even if you did, he might still inflict you with boils if it wasn't a good day for him. So maybe that metaphor is useful to know that we must trust God first. And maybe that metaphor is that not that we have to surrender or sacrifice our firstborn son or our ram first anymore. What it's about is our ego. We must be willing to let go of our ego. We must be willing to let go of our judgments and our assessments and our anger and our resentments, because we don't have the whole story. Nobody has the whole story about what's going on with someone else. And quite frankly, we don't even really know what's going on with us most of the time, if you're anything like me. There was a scene in 7 Years in Tibet that I thought was quite cute. The Brad Pitt character was standing there trying to impress a girl that he liked, a Tibetan. And he's showing her his newspaper clippings and all these mountains he had climbed, and how his country celebrated him to be a star athlete and whatever. And she says, "Isn't it interesting how our cultures differ?" She says, "In your culture, getting to the top of the mountain, be the best that you can be, is what your culture holds as the highest achievement. In my culture, it is releasing ego." So we don't understand or accept all of our dark stuff, but we need to. It is the door out. It's got the exit sign above the door. A woman I know is a perfect example of this. And she has been for decades in a life and death struggle with her ex over alimony. She's taken him to court. I don't know how many times. They've just been in this horrible tug of war. And I'm like, is she ever going to get tired of this game she's playing? Or him too. So finally, she heard a religious science minister tell her the cost of, in an egoic struggle like she's playing, what the cost is on her health and her life. For whatever reason, it was the moment that we all hope that somebody flips on the light and all of a sudden the fog clears and we get it. So she decided to let go. She says, "I'm tired, I'm not going to do this anymore. God bless him, he's not my source anyway. He is God in my life to remind me of where I'm not healed, blah, 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 blah." And she's finally willing to let go. What was so fascinating and beautiful about it was that she dropped the rope, he did too. As soon as she was willing to listen to reason, he was willing to come to the table with almost as much as she wanted for the finish, for the finale. It's over, just like that. I told her, I said, now maybe you can begin to take a look at the issues that you are still unhealed with your own mother. She's not quite there yet, but see, the thing is that we don't understand what people have been through. Many of us have parents who have had a rough childhood because of the Depression and World War II and all of that other stuff. And so, is it possible, do you have the space in your heart to open to the possibility that maybe there's more to the story and that you can open your heart just a little bit for the awakening information